For many of us, church buildings are more than just physical structures. They are sacred spaces set apart for worship and the work of God's kingdom. The very design, layout, and even church facility maintenance reflect our understanding of its spiritual role. But what does it mean for a church to be a sacred space, and why is it important for church leaders to recognize and maintain that sacredness? Throughout Scripture, God's people have built sacred spaces for worship and communing with God. From the tabernacle in the Old Testament, where God's presence dwelled among his people, to the temples and sanctuaries where worship was offered, sacred space has always been central to the spiritual life of God's people. In the New Testament, while the church becomes a body of believers rather than a physical building, we still see that the spaces where we gather play a critical role in how we worship and connect with God. The church building serves as a space set apart, a place for the people of God to come together, experience his presence, and worship him in the community. As we explore this idea of sacred space, there are a few things we need to remember. While it is sacred, it should never become so sacred that needed maintenance or changes are not made. It should not become a golden idol. Also, we need to remember that God's presence imparts sacredness. When we gather in the building, our intent creates the catalyst for the space to be holy as it is dedicated to God's work. Wherever people gather to connect, every part of the church serves a purpose in advancing its mission. As church leaders and stewards, we must maintain these spaces with care and respect. The physical space reflects our values and priorities. It communicates to the congregation and the community how we view our worship, our ministry, and the God we serve. In just a moment, we'll hear from Jernigan Schwint, Senior Pastor of Discover Church, who will share his thoughts on the spiritual significance of church buildings and church leaders' responsibility in maintaining those sacred spaces. Jernigan will explain how caring for our church facilities is not just about upkeep, it's about honoring their sacred purpose. Maintaining our facilities has a higher purpose. It shows the world that we value the space God entrusted to us. It also provides a preview of how we may treat our community.
What we talk about periodically is that the environments that we create say something about the amount of care we will put into someone's soul. Mm-hmm. And so if we are sloppy with our environments, if it's muddy and nasty, but it's a beautiful day outside and it's muddy and nasty, if it smells weird, if there's bugs all over it, like, what is that saying to somebody about how much we care about their soul? We often talk about, and I think excellence in the church world has been a buzzword for a while. But we've kind of pivoted away from the idea of excellence and saying, listen, ultimately, the heart of excellence is ultimately rooted in a heart of care. And so if we care about what people are dealing with, if we care about what people are navigating, if we care that they're having marital problems or that their teenager just, is struggling with their identity, if we care about the challenges that they're facing, let's communicate that by caring enough to create an environment that they can walk in and go, when I go to a new restaurant and it's gross or it feels weird, I'm immediately questioning my decision to come to this restaurant. And if the seats are sticky and the table is grimy, I'm asking questions. What's going on in the kitchen? Mm-hmm. And what's going to be on my plate? And what's going to go in my body? I think that as a church, it's critical that we consider the same kind of things, that people are going to be asking the same kind of question. If things are disorganized or dirty or grimy, like, what does that say about how you're going to care about me? If you care this little about the environment, why would I be willing to trust you with my soul, with my burdens, with my pains, with the questions that I'm asking? And so that's what goes into the enjoyable environment thing. And that's why that's so important for us. Again, context also plays a part of that. We know that the demographic information tells us that 40 years ago, Kansas City was considered the northern part of the belt buckle of America. Today, 80+% of people have no connection to an evangelical church. What that tells us is that at some point, a whole lot of people went to church, had something that happened, something that changed that caused them to decide, I got the t-shirt, but I don't want it. And so if they walk into our environment, they are already overcoming so many obstacles. Again, same thing as a restaurant. If you've decided to come into my restaurant, I don't want stickiness on the seat or food on the table or something on the floor to cause you to wonder what's going on in the kitchen. We just want to be able to create space where people aren't asking questions. What's going on in the kitchen? What's going on with the hearts of these people? Can I trust these people? And then if you've got kids, it's ratcheted up exponentially. because I'm not trusting my babies into people that I don't know, especially if the room looks gross and grimy. And so we take great pains to think through that process of an enjoyable environment that is clean and fun and safe.
Thank you to Jernigan for sharing profound insights into our church building's spiritual and theological importance. As we've heard, a church building is more than just a place. It's a sacred space set apart for God's work. How we care for that space, whether we always realize it, reflects to the community a measure of how we care for God and His creation. As church leaders, we are entrusted with these sacred spaces. We honor their spiritual purpose by maintaining and treating them with respect. When you reflect on your own church facility, think about its sacred role in your community and the lives of those who gather there. Caring for your church building isn't just about keeping it in good condition. It's about recognizing that space's more profound spiritual significance and how it furthers the mission of God's kingdom. May our church buildings always reflect their sacred purpose as places where people encounter God, grow in their faith, and engage in His work.